Welcome everybody here at Westergasfabriek in Amsterdam, and welcome also to everybody joining us online from wherever you are in the world. My name is Aldit Hunkar. After many years as an anchor in the newsrooms in the Netherlands, I now call myself Global Freestyle Multimedia Journalist. It's my very, very, very great pleasure to be your guide throughout this afternoon. We have all gathered here today to celebrate the grand final of the Bright Minds Challenge 2017, to get inspired, to share perspectives, to find new pathways towards collaboration, and of course to celebrate the Bright Minds finalists. Of the 55 bright minds that answered the call to fast forward towards 100% renewable energy, the 3 remaining finalists will present their ideas for a sustainable future. We will reveal the winner, the ultimate winner of this big challenge, and DSM CEO Feike Sijbesma will present the awards. So here are our finalists here. Let me look at these faces. Do I notice any nervousness? How about you, Mr. Calvo? Could you stand up and show your face? Ernesto Calvo, ladies and gentlemen. How are you feeling at this moment?
I'm feeling great. It's a very, very good opportunity for us to disclose what we have been working on to get sustainability. And I'm really relaxed.
Well, good, it shows. Have a seat, be comfortable. Next to Mr. Calvo is Richard Awar from Tanzania. How's things for you? Yes, of course.
Well, very good. I'm really happy to be here and looking forward to make a presentation.
Yeah. Well, we are all looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Have a seat, relax. There's time now still. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Weinstein from Brazil. How are you feeling, sir?
I'm feeling good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Energized?
Excited.
All right, good.
Excited.
Looking forward to your presentation
Thank
as
you.
well. Have a seat. So all of you will be presenting pitching your solutions for a better future in quite a while now. But before that, ladies and gentlemen, I will engage with an international panel of experts on the topic of cross-border collaboration to address climate change. We will explore together how to join forces, knowledge, experience, and networks for that transition to a 100% renewable energy future. That is what my conversation with the panel will be about. All through this event, we ask you and people at home to join in the conversation. Send your tweets using that hashtag brightmindschallenge. Ask your questions online. And besides Twitter, yes, this is what I would like to say. Besides Twitter, I would like you to surf to slido.com and to enter the event code BMC so that you can participate with your questions and your comments and even participate in the polls that we will be having here. DSM's Paul Balin in the back of the room will be your online moderator and will make sure that everybody is a part of this afternoon. In fact, Paul, why don't we just practice it right now, see that everybody's on the same page? Asking you now to take your phones with the sound off and to surf to slido.com, enter that event code BMC, and let's see, oh, there's the first poll already. Do you have solar panels at home? You may answer on your phones now. Let's see what this brings. Do you have solar panels at home? Well, 75%, it looks, no, 29, 50. Most people seem to think they have them already, 33%. But most of us, I suppose, are considering it. Maybe it's a matter of costs, maybe it's a matter of something else. I'm sure we'll be able to discuss that as this day goes on. I wonder, Paul, is this the final vote or still more coming in?
There are still a few coming in, I see.
Yeah?
You see it switching on the screen.
Yes. But I think we have a pretty good idea that most of us are considering solar panels at home, but don't have them quite yet. So this is what we'll be doing throughout the day. You'll be answering polls, asking your questions, and placing your comments on slido.com. So now that we know how it works, maybe it's time to introduce the jury members to you, the people, the very important people who will decide who wins first, second, and third prize today. From my part, I wish you all wisdom and a lot of knowledge and patience for your strenuous task. Thank you all for being here. Please show your face. Andrea Warner, the Deputy Director of SCOL. Take a bow. Thank you for being here, Andrea. Emily Reichert, CEO of Greentown Labs. Sander van der Heijden, the Director Chemicals and Natural Resources of Accenture. Danny Kennedy, environmental activist and Managing Director of California Clean Energy Fund. Welcome, Danny. Jeremy Leggett, the Founder Director of Solar Century and Founding Chairman of Solar Aid. And last but certainly not least, the non-voting chairman of this jury, Rob van Leen, Chief Innovation Officer at DSM. Thank you all for being here. Your task starts now. So climate change, ladies and gentlemen, it goes without saying, is one of our greatest challenges here on Earth at this moment. So moving swiftly towards that 100% renewable energy is the best way forward. I'm sure all experts would agree. So how does cross-border collaboration provide a beacon of hope to provide this 100% renewable energy? And how does it work? What are the challenges? So let's talk about these questions. And in the meantime, please remember that you online and you in the room are invited to join the conversation. May I ask the panel members to join me here on stage, please? Have a seat, ladies and gentlemen, lady and gentlemen. So let me introduce them to you. Sitting right here, well, we just saw you, but let's say it again. Jeremy Leggett, next to him is Danny Kennedy. Sandrine, we hadn't seen you yet. Sandrine Dixon de Clève, she is a Senior Advisor, Corporate Purpose, Sustainability and Climate Change. Welcome, Sandrine. And Rob van Leen, I have introduced to you already as the chairman of the jury. So this is our panel of experts with whom we will talk about cross-border collaboration. But first, Paul, you have a poll for the panel and for the room. Or do you not at this point? You do. Let's
yes,
have
indeed.
a look.
We do have a poll question coming up.
Yes?
So can we switch to the poll, please?
So the term climate change should be changed into climate disruption. That is the question of the poll. Let's see what the people in the room and online are saying. Give them a chance to answer. The term climate change should be changed into climate disruption. And as far as I can tell now, the vast majority is in favor of changing that term, because change sounds too non-urgent, is what people say, and the term is okay, no need to change it, only 33%, and no, that would be too radical, that is 13% so far. So a short, may I ask you, Jeremy, for a short response to this outcome?
Well, I think it's wise. Climate change, to many people who don't know how fast the change is actually happening, does sound a little, short of depicting the problem. So just as we're disrupting the sources of greenhouse gas emissions, I think that word disruption is a good one.
It's a good one. Sandrine, do you agree or do you not agree?
I do. I think we need to be careful, though, with terminology, because disruption does scare people. And as we're in the midst now...
It's a big word.
Well, we're in the midst of a populist culture where we've seen that there's a great deal of fear for change. So as long as disruption is seen as something positive, and we change the narrative that climate disruption is negative, but the solutions are positive, and by working together we can actually create a vision which is much more positive for society at large, then I think we're okay.
Then you think you're okay. Danny?
I like it.
You like it?
Let's escalate the angst.
We need more angst, you saying?
We're not taking this seriously
Can we bear more
enough.
angst? Yeah. Well, and Rob?
No, I was actually looking for a different word, because I'm more with Sandrine. I don't like the word disruption, because it could be with a wrong connotation. So I was more in the direction of climate improvement.
Climate improvement.
We should talk about climate improvement.
Mm-hmm. So that would be actually changing the narrative 180 degrees, because now when we talk about change, we talk about the bad stuff. But you're saying give it a positive spin. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
It's very clear to me. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. So let's talk about this cross-border collaboration. Let me start with you again, Jeremy. What is the importance of cross-border collaboration when it comes to climate? What did you say, Rob?
Improvement.
Improvement.
Well, it's hugely important. It's a global problem. It's not going to be solved by any one country or company. It's going to be solved by everyone working together. There are no magic bullets. So it's pivotal to what's going on. And I think those of us who are prone to being encouraged and positive about what's happening look at every sector of this great global drama and see that there is terrific cross-border collaboration. We saw that in Paris with every independent nation on the planet adopting that treaty, including the United States, of course. And we see it with the companies. You know, 85 of our biggest companies have pledged to get to 100% renewables. They don't make such pledges easily. You know, that has to be a target that's achievable. And, you know, collectively, they're halfway there already. And that's with existing technology off the shelf, not the kind of innovations that this event is about and our entrepreneurs are about.
So
all this is going to be added icing on the cake.
Right. Danny, could you give some great examples of collaboration?
Well, let me start as the sort of token American up here, because there's sort of an elephant in the room, which is that the United States has recently
address the elephant in the room.
said some bad things and tried to pull themselves out of Paris. Not that they can in the time that man will probably still be in the White House, but I come from California, which is all about collaboration across borders, both within the United States, and since Trump made that announcement, California's led something called the Climate Alliance, which is a group of states that are going to comply with Paris, and now many cities in the country have joined that. But also California has been reaching out internationally and trying to build cross-border collaboration, most notably with China, and just the last week with our governor over there meeting with President Xi. You know, notably the Secretary of Energy didn't get the meeting with the President of China, but the governor of California did. And when California talks, America walks. That's kind of the history, whether it's auto efficiency standards, which Sandrine would know about, or many other markets. We've moved it because we're the 6th largest economy in the world. So we can really pull and push America, and we want to collaborate with the world. So that's kind of my message. Great examples to your question. I think the Under 2 MOU right now is a really important collaboration, which California really led, and it's about sub-federal entities or non-states committing to Paris goals at the level of states and cities and the like. And since Paris, it's become a movement which represents about half the economies of the world. So it's a really important thing that I think you'll see more of in coming years.
And it's happening as we speak. It's not something that we're coming up with now.
The Under 2 MOU, I should have explained, is a memorandum of understanding to keep us below 2 degrees C.
Yes, gotcha. Sandrine, what would be the ideal outcome of this cross-border collaboration that we're talking about? What would be the best thing to achieve?
Well, I think there are many good things to achieve, but before we get there, I'd like to build on the Paris effect, because I think what Trump totally underestimated was that actually the Paris effect trumps the Trump effect. And why I say that is because what happened in Paris was the first time ever that we had so many different types of collaborations, whether you did it across countries, so the High Impact Coalition, for example, High Ambition Coalition that was working between vulnerable states and some of the largest countries, including the European Union, but also the United States, worked together to really start to look at those most vulnerable countries and their needs. Then you had businesses getting together with investors, you had cities, you had states, you had citizens, you had NGOs. And for those of us that were actually in the room when Paris was signed, we all understood that something was happening that was bigger than life. And it's definitely bigger than Trump. And I want to come back to that because we've all suffered from the Trump effect over the last few weeks, from the hate Trump's love. And I'd like to get back to the love and collaboration Trump's hate. If we see what happened after Trump said that the US would actually withdraw, and I agree with Danny, it's going to take many years before he's even gone, and definitely if he's impeached, then we're okay. I'm really showing my colors now.
Yes, you are. Go, girl.
But the fact of the matter is that these collaborations carry on now. If you look at Bloomberg, who announced that he would put up the $15 million that the U.S. would be taking out of the climate fund. If you look at Brown saying he's going to negotiate now directly with the European Union and the Mexicans and the Canadians. If you look at all the cities coming together and the Global Covenant of Mayors, and then all the businesses that have complained, actually, people have really come together and shown that a massive collaboration is what's necessary to bring us forward.
Good. So putting Trump aside, literally, I'd like to still ask you the question, what would be the ideal outcome of cross-border collaboration?
So for me, cross-border is not just about physical borders.
Right.
It's about perceptions. That means that we need to get the energy-intensive sectors together with the new technologies, and they want to. The suppliers together with those that have demand. We need to look at decentralized solutions as much as centralized solutions. That means you bring in the consumer or the prosumer approach. So real collaboration means that we actually need to go beyond our current systems and really think outside of the box. And again, because of this new Paris effect, there are many companies, many citizens, many states, many cities, countries that are really wanting to do that. That, for me, would be the perfect scenario. And really building that vision and that narrative of, yes, the angst is there, but as humans, can we please step up to the plate and make this work and bring forward a brand new climate economy and new economy that actually functions properly, gives people what they need, because that's absolutely essential. We still have 1.2 billion people who don't have access to energy, 2.7 billion that are very much reliant on biomass cook stoves. So we need to make sure that when we talk about people, we don't talk about just our Western societies, but also the world's most vulnerable.
As a whole. And in fact,
Yes.
you're saying that this angst that Danny is talking about is actually pulling the world together. So that in itself is a positive outcome.
The momentum's there, we have to make sure it continues.
Well, this is what we're doing here today.
Absolutely.
Right. So, Rob, your view on the ideal outcome, you know, when we say 20 years forward, what would be the outcome of today and the fact that we're talking about cross-border collaboration?
Yeah, 20 years from now, I think everybody in the world will realize that we had a problem, and I think at that point in time we will be on our way to solving the problem and making really the world back again a better place than it is today. I think we cannot afford to give our future generations the problems that we have created, so we are responsible of solving them. And like the previous speaker said, you cannot do it alone, you need to work across borders. Governments need to help us in putting the regulations in place, but the businesses have to do the innovation, create the jobs, educate the people. Right. That's what we're doing every day. Look at the role of Feike in the Carbon Pricing Coalition, another cross-border collaboration where indeed it takes care of the fact that some countries are ahead of others and takes that into account and helps get it slowly but surely on the way. And once carbon pricing is there, people will realize that there's a price for doing anything that is not renewable, and instead of improving the world, damaging the world, disrupting, and I think we can no longer go on with that. So if anything happened in the last couple of weeks, I think the determination to do something about it has only grown.
So what can we do? I mean, the people here, the people online, you, me, what can we do?
Well, you can do something every day. You can do it very small in your private life. You can make all sorts of choices, but of course what we are doing today is mobilizing people. Today is not very much aimed at DSM. We do a lot at DSM for renewables, but this is to create a global movement. We have people now involved that we never knew before. I'm personally amazed that 55 million people were touched by the campaign. I never expected that a year ago when we started to think about it. 2.4 people did something actively with it. They sent it to a friend, say, here, this is it, or they responded to it. I find that pretty amazing for an experiment that we did. We think it's a successful experiment, so we will go on with this. And basically in the whole renewable space, there's so much to discuss globally. So that is something at least that we continue to do, not necessarily for the benefit of DSM, but more for the benefit of the whole society.
Jeremy, would you like to comment on Rob's work?
Yeah, there are so many things that people can do, but I think one of the most exciting aspects of all this is vocations, people's jobs. I mean, let's not forget now that in the United States, there are something like 50,000 coal miners, But I believe the latest figure for solar is getting up towards 600,000, is it not?
Yeah.
And lots of people working in wind as well. So you can see young people of all kinds of trainings actually gravitating to a career and a vocation where they are part of this great global energy transition. And speaking personally, as a founder of one of those companies, Solar Century, we're international, we're not in the States, but the same rules apply. You can see it in the faces of the young engineers and other people who come and work at a company like that. And that is a wonderful thing. And then at the other end of the spectrum in the developing world, again with SolarAid, the charity that we set up at Solar Century, we can see the thrill that people have when they're given livelihoods selling solar lanterns at the bottom of the energy ladder in Africa.
So people actually having more fun working because they're in this kind of sector?
Yes, they do. And, recently there was an article in the Wall Street Journal. There's some days you think you've died and woken up in heaven. The headline was something like oil and gas workers flooding out of the fracking fields into renewables. And, it's great to see, and we need more of it. And that's going to be a great driving force for good in society. Let's not forget, these incumbent industries that are causing the climate change problem are literally dying out. The average age of the worker in the oil and gas industry today, globally, including all the graduates, is 49. And the average retirement age is 55. This industry has a broken business model, and we're going to replace it.
Yeah.
With something much kinder.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Danny? Do you have this shared optimism of a better, more centralized world?
Look, I think optimism is really a choice. It's kind of a strategy in the face of climate and the change that we are seeing, the disruption, the angst I feel. But I agree with Jeremy that we've got a lot of positives, and this is a great example of what the world needs to do now. And all the people online, hello out there, do share it, do get active, do increase the flow of this information. Today's amazing entrepreneurs presenting, because we have a theory that every doubling of the population of brains that you put to the task of innovation triples the rate of innovation and solution.
Can you repeat that?
Every doubling of the number of minds focused on the problem triples the rate of solution. So that's what we're doing. We're doubling the population, worried about this, creating answers and building companies to solve the great challenge of our time, which is climate change. And, this company, DSM, came from coal mines and is now hosting the Bright Minds Challenge.
Exactly.
That's a good news story. That's a wonderful history to be celebrating, and here at
it proves it's
this
doable.
end of, to show that it can be done.
Yeah, right. So I'm just wondering, Paul, do you have any reactions that you'd like to share at this point?
Yeah, there's indeed from the online audience an interesting question coming in. And that is, what is needed most to make this world fueled by 100% renewable energy?
To make this world?
Fueled by 100%
Fueled
renewable.
by 100%. Anybody have an answer to that question?
I think it's
Danny?
entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I think we need more of these brave people that are risking everything in their lives to go start a business to spread some sunshine.
Right.
And I would add to that scale and replication. I mean, I think that we need to talk about the good stories. The entrepreneurs need to talk about the good stories. They need the support, but we also need to pass it on to so many other countries, so many other communities, and then we need to go to scale. And I think that's fundamental. And then I think the third is, let's think of the whole value chain. So let's make sure that we bring everyone on board. As Jeremy was saying, we are creating jobs, but there is a transition that needs to be done, which we're calling a just transition, which is making sure that people realize that even if they are shifting from chemicals or something else, there is a job for them. And we do need to think about that. Otherwise, that fear comes in again and the pushing back.
And how about education? You'll be needing to train different kinds of people for the
future. So education is fundamental, and I would also plea, in particular in developing countries and Africa, is women's education. Because women are solution providers and enablers, in particular in communities. We've already seen in terms of microfinance that women take these things on board, they live it to the core, and they deliver new solutions. So we need to take on board those community solutions, but we need to empower women in their communities, and education is a fundamental start.
So now that we've talked a bit about Paris 2015. So I wonder what other challenges lie ahead to get this thing done, to use this momentum and move forward?
I think I would like
Rob.
to still add one element to what we haven't discussed yet to get to that point is the technological challenge and the cost challenge. Because it is an economic reality in some cases that the old fossil fuels are cheaper than the renewable energy.
Right.
And a lot of people will not have the inclination to switch. So I think that is also what we need to do. We simply should make it cheaper so that it becomes an obvious choice. And there are already places around the world.
Can that be done, though?
Yeah, well, there are places around the world where that is the case. And with all our inventions and breakthroughs that we are trying to put in place and combine and scale and through collaboration accelerate, I think we get to the point that it doesn't make sense to keep coal mines open and to burn oil and all of that stuff, because simply the renewable energy will be cheaper.
Right. So.
Yeah, I wanted to build on that. I think that one of the key challenges is directing the finance to where it really needs to go. We've already heard many times.
So who's in charge of doing that?
So, well, public money, but as well as private money. And I think that in order to do that, you need to have the right policy frameworks and the right signals coming from a country that they really are going to invest in renewables and in new low-carbon solutions. That's important for investors. Then when we have public-private partnerships, we need to get the investors on board from the beginning. What often happens is the criteria is developed before they even come on board. And then I would
So you need the developers to help form those criteria.
To actually form the criteria, actually form those partnerships. And the last point is, the money is there, but the big kind of elephant in the room, in particular in some of those economies that need it the most, is corruption. And that comes up a lot across a variety of sectors, not just in this sector.
Right.
But I do think that there is an issue where we need to make sure that the money still goes to where it needs to go and that the end result is for the people.
So that is actually one of the main challenges, if I understand you correctly. So how do you solve that? Let's start with the corruption thing. Can that be solved?
People have to start being sent to jail. I mean, there are some really egregious examples of, and I'm trying really hard not to mention a certain Dutch company that we know, bunged $1 billion to a known criminal to buy an oil field in Nigeria. Yeah. For people who don't know about this, it's absolutely shocking. But that drama is being played out. And as long as business executives think that they can get away with that, and in the case of one senior executive, describe it as pub talk, then we're going to have a problem.
I think one answer to the end of corruption is the end of fossil fuels. There's a very strong
Also.
correlation. You look at even conservative organizations like Freedom House that study the kind of resource colonies for fossil fuels and corruption, and there's a strong overlay. I come from Australia, the land down under. We're replete with corruption. There's a minister going to jail as I speak because the coal industry had him in their back pocket. This ain't a developing country problem. This is an historical reality which fossil fuels actually have historically been a driver of.
I don't really see the link. Can you explain why it is fossil fuels?
You don't see the link between the Saudi royal family and the Koch brothers and others that have so much wealth and power and concentrated in the hands of so few that they think they can just run by fiat democracies at their whim. That's been, sadly, the pattern, and too many of them have fallen into that.
And that's why we started off with the politics. I mean, let's not disassociate some of this to the politics. The Koch brothers have basically stopped the election of those that actually wanted to go forward, believed in climate, believed in low-carbon technologies. They ensured that actually those people would not be elected, including Republicans. So let's be very clear that this is all this new innovative and new thinking and kind of going beyond the existing system that we actually need to create, which is very exciting, this vision. We need to very much look at how the politics are tied to this and change the politics as well.
But aren't you afraid that if you switch to renewable and make that the popular thing and the money-making machine, that corruption will just move along with it?
It's a fair point.
Yeah, absolutely fair point.
And we absolutely have to combat that with the cultures that we create in these companies.
Right.
So, for example, I'm sorry if I sound boastful here, but I think it's so important. Solar Century gives 5% of its profits to a charity that exists to get solar lighting into Africa. And if more companies did that kind of thing, I think we could generate cultures where it would become unthinkable.
And do it without it being a tax reduction. Just do it, from the right place in your heart,
well,
maybe.
yeah, so that, people don't float to the top in these companies who think that they can do things like knowingly give $1 billion to a criminal to get access to an oil field, and it'll be okay. It shouldn't be okay.
There's also like a structural thing as well as a cultural piece, which I think comes in the renewable industry. And the structural one is that because it's a distributed architecture of assets, they can be more locally owned and locally controlled. They may not necessarily be. They may be centralized through capital and through other choices that we make along the way. But there's this amazing sort of emancipatory potential, without sounding too silly about it, that we're not just switching out the fuel system from dirty to clean. We're getting the commanding heights of the economy in the hands of the people, power to the people. And they then will have choices democratically as to whether they allow that to be abused and whether they allow it to be centralized and controlled by a corrupt few, or whether it stays there. And, Germany, your neighboring nation, has had, really interesting tussles with this in its Energiewende, where, community ownership was sort of the beginning, and then it started to go to the banks, and now the sort of co-ops are coming back, and, we'll see what the end game is. But they're 37% wind and solar powered so far this year, and a lot of that asset base is owned by communities. Yeah. That's cool.
All right. Moving on, are we at all optimistic about the future? Rob, let me try starting with you.
Of course.
Yeah, but it needs to be backed up, of course.
No, yeah, but I mean, if you're in innovation, you're supposed to be an optimist, because most of the things that you try in the end do not work, but some of them do. And I've done it now for so long that I'm convinced that the tenacity that is needed to get to that point and to follow the compass that we set as companies will always bring us where we want to be, as long as we have the determination to go there, have the collaboration. I think in the modern days, no single company can do it alone. That was maybe a thing of the past. That will change. And I see more and more people in global coalitions that have the right mindset and have the right values, and therefore I'm an optimist, because I think that will beat the rest.
So by keeping doing what you do you notice that there is a paradigm shift in the way society is actually looking at the world these days?
Yeah.
The way of thinking, Sandrine?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think the next generation millennials are thinking completely differently.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite interesting. If you look at the collective spirit, whether it be through Uber, it be non-direct ownership of vehicles, whether it be selling clothes online, I mean, there is an issue.
Upcycling old stuff.
Exactly. You see that actually they've decided to make the individual choice. So we're not necessarily talking about communism here. We're talking about a collective spirit, and that's really different. Yeah. Individuals are making the choice to be collective. It's not forced upon them.
So this is the new thing.
This is really the new thing,
yeah.
and I think it's fantastic. I think that the fact that they're choosing to spend their money on other things, not necessarily, and to recycle and to have an approach where they don't have to have direct ownership themselves, is positive. You look at transition towns, you look at permaculture, which is also around collective urban gardens, etc. I mean, the whole vision is not just about solar technology. The vision is about that technology which is collectively owned, and other low-carbon technologies, creating a space for people to live happily together without all of the creature benefits that they thought they needed, which actually, again, if we look at the happiness index, is not making them happy. So I actually think this is a much bigger picture around how we can actually create the society that we want, that is collective, that's supporting more people across the globe so that they can actually have the quality of life that we have here.
Thanks. So Danny, if everybody's happy, nobody's looking at their neighbor to see what they have, what we don't have, right? So if it's, like Sandrine says, if it belongs to all of us.
You know, I think our opportunity with this energy transition is to create an abundance of electricity and mobility services, which also opens up a much kinder, gentler, compassionate sharing economy and society.
Will we make it, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. You know, I've gone from being a pessimist to a cautious optimist.
Great.
I think we have turned the tide. We are now winning the carbon war. In climate and energy and that nexus, and you know, we have got to go on and complete the victory, if you like. But then there will be immediately other problems, and in parallel, we have to get the use of tech generally right. with these kinds of themes, good themes like artificial intelligence, robotics, and there's unfinished business there. They can be used for terrific good, and are being even in this space, but they can also be used as the perfect apparatus for, really gloomy futures of society. And we have
leave
to get
those
that right.
for films, etc., and keep the good stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. So I guess this rounds up, unless there's something that I haven't asked you that you really need to share.
I just wanted to share one thing. I mean, obviously, we've just painted a beautiful vision of what the world should look like. That doesn't mean that there aren't difficult conversations to have, complexities to have, and as Jeremy says, there will be real barriers along the way. But I think collectively, again, and with the great momentum that we already have, the entrepreneurs that we have, both small and big, as well as the social and the environmental coming together, that's really changing things and is something that we can build on.
So what, according to you, would be the first next step after today?
Well, the first next step is to take these incredible examples, and the other 55, by the way, that came in, and start to talk about them and see if there are possibilities for scale and replication. Then I would say, and that's my work, is some of those wicked problems or those difficult conversations. So how do you bring the rest of the value chain on board? How do you talk about a just transition with a coal miner? How do you talk about a just transition with a steel worker? And how do you make sure you bring them into this new vision?
Danny, first next step, according to you?
Let's get these entrepreneurs out there and successful.
We will in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
Rob?
Yeah, I only
Same
second
thing?
that. Yeah.
All right, I think we all agree, Jeremy. So I'd like to thank you very much for sharing your views and your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, our panel, Rob van Leen, Sandrine, Dixon de Clève, Danny Kennedy, and Jeremy Leggett. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And I would like to say to our viewers on Facebook, see you later on when DSM CEO Feike Sijbesma is back here with the awards. That will be in just a while. So give us some time to do a little set change here, and we will continue with the highlight of today, I guess. Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached this pivotal moment of today. It is time for the 3 finalists to present their solutions for that 100% renewable energy future that we are all aiming for. Remember, today's awards are not about money. They are about access to skills and to resources and to knowledge and to networks. And they are also about concrete action to help scale up those fantastic ideas that you have come up. So what is at stake? Let me briefly tell you. Number 3 will receive 125 hours of expert support. Number 2 will receive 250 hours of expert support, and the winner will receive 500 hours of expert support. And I suppose that with those hours, anything goes with whatever you've come up with. So I will ask the finalists on stage in alphabetical sequence of the name of their program. And I'd like to start with the solution from Tanzania called Cellulike. Please welcome Richard Awar.
Thank you. My name is Richard from Tanzania in East Africa. And the reason I'm here today on this platform is because 270 million households across the emerging markets of Africa and Asia are actually off the national grid in the respective countries. And that these communities today burn firewood and kerosene and candles for light. And they impact the environment negatively and heavily, of course, maybe not to the scale of diesel-powered factories, but quite substantially as well. In the process, these communities are impacted socially by the kerosene that they burn when they inhale the fumes, and that affect a lot of their respiratory systems. And their kids hardly get enough time to study because the firewood and kerosene burns out. They too relatively spend quite significant portion of their meager income in purchasing this dirty energy. Now, we probably already agree that solar power in the current form provides the best alternative to this dirty energy today, and especially for these 270 million households. But as it turns out, majority of these communities actually live on less than $2 a day. They're actually low-income communities, rural-based. So a lot of innovation and a lot of work and a lot of funding has gone into developing fantastic equipment in microgrid solar systems. A Global Off-Grid Lighting Association estimates that between the year 2007 and 2015, about 407 million was put into developing fantastic solar equipment targeted at these communities. But a lot of them cannot afford this, and yet the solution is out there. We also know that the process of giving these communities solar power and renewable energy has actually a business opportunity of about $50 billion, and that's according to Global Off-Grid Lighting Association. So we are introducing a new solution that will enable the same communities to acquire the same fantastic devices so produced, and they actually pay for them in a program lease to own over a period of time. Next slide, please. Let me say this, that we already have a couple of fantastic pay-as-you-go solutions to help the same communities transition into clean energy. But most of the tech solutions that you have today for the communities are actually based on desktop applications. The desktop applications that we know today run on smartphones and require internet. Again, another challenge that within these communities that are rural-based, internet penetration is actually very small, whether it's in Africa or Asia. In fact, a country like Tanzania has internet penetration of about 5%, and mainly in urban areas where there could be electricity already. So that's a second challenge again. Kadogo, which is the platform that we're introducing today, actually runs on USSD. Maybe you already know that USSD is supported by any GSM network, and you only need a normal, cheap GSM phone to access this platform. The relevance of a USSD platform is such that we can move the connection and the transition of these communities into solar power, into pay-as-you-go technology, by using the same village agents in the same communities, so that they actually have something to do that actually translates into job creation. Because if we continue doing it through the normal hierarchy of a corporate level, then it will actually take a lot of time to get there. It is estimated that in the rate of which these communities are transitioning into clean energy, it will not be until the year 2080 before we put some form of clean energy into every home in the world. But with development of this technology into the hands of village agents, so that we can actually use the same people, give them jobs, and actually be the agents of change within this community, we can do this actually a lot faster. Next slide, please. So in that slide, the lady in blue, Aisha, is actually an example of a village agent selling prepaid solar tokens to other neighbors in the market. And through that, she earns an upfront commission of about $130 a month. She did not have a job before. I guess she would have probably gone and sold bananas, but you can see a lot of competition, so it would have been very hard for her. So we have actually translated the process of converting people from dirty energy into solar energy by making that prepaid token another product of trade in the market, using very simple, already existing technology, but simplified, and actually people earn an income. The lady being sold to a token, taking it back home, the lady up there with a small boy, the husband is called Ustad. I met Ustad in Tanzania in a village called Mgeule about a year back. So Ustad teaches madrasa. Madrasa is the Muslim religious teaching that is taught to the kids. Ustad before taught only one lesson in the evening because all the lessons are done after formal education. So these are about 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. The bigger kids come from school a little later, but at the time it's already dark, so Ustad cannot teach a second class. Ustad earned about $80 a month from the madrasa teaching. We installed pay-as-you-go solar power into Ustad's house. Ustad today can teach 2 lessons. The first lesson is 6 to 7, and the second lesson for the bigger kids who come from school later is actually 7 to 8, when it's already dark, but just before the evening prayers at 8 o'clock. And Ustad therefore earns about $160 today. If you translate Ustad's income before, it was actually about $2.5 a day. So Ustad probably fell into the 270 million households that are off-grid, but cannot afford to buy a solar equipment upfront. Ustad is out of that bracket today. So actually solar power can actually translate into both social development and actually economic development, and therefore the ripple effect is massive. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. Have a seat. The idea is to ask the jury members to ask questions, but I would like to remind the people watching online that now is your time to send in your questions for the finalists so that we can get around to that when the time comes. But for now, jury members, a question for Richard Awar.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time, of course, before this afternoon, and we talked it over, and we decided that Jeremy will ask the first question.
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful presentation. And clearly, you, like the rest of us who are working in Africa, are kind of anguished at the thought that sales of solar lights are actually going down now in the world, in Africa and in the rest of the world.
Right.
A huge collective failure on all our parts. So that's the background to my question. And I wondered, what can you tell us that will give us a sense for the total accessible market that you see with this lower grade version of pay-as-you-go compared to the techniques that rely on people having cell phones, modern devices, and access to the internet? How much more of the bottom of the pyramid can you access with your technique?
Thanks for the question. Let me just start by saying that out of every 10 people in Tanzania, as an example, 7 live in the rural areas where there's no reliable internet. The second point is that Tanzania has internet penetration in terms of smart devices of about 1.7 million, thereabout. And I also know that Apple phones, are about 72,000 in the whole of Tanzania. So that got to show how small the fraction that accesses the internet is in Tanzania today. But again, what makes it worse is that majority of the people who access internet are actually in the urban areas, and chances are that they'll have electricity already. Well, 60% of the people in the city of Dar es Salaam, which is the capital city of Tanzania, 60% have electricity. But remember, the 70% in the rural markets actually don't have power, they don't have access to internet. I also think that, in fact, there's more electricity penetration than even the internet. So I don't think the internet will help us get more electricity to these people.
Yes, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you also, Richard. One more question maybe from the jury?
Yeah, from Emily.
Emily Reichert. Yes.
Richard, wonderful pitch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to hear more about your plan for building your business. So the outcome of this competition will mean the winner has many, many hours of support from the consortium, including DSM. How do you propose to use that support to grow your business? So the question is, what's the pathway? What comes next? How do you grow this? And how will you use the support of the consortium, including DSM? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Let me say this, that to develop a USSD platform to run pay-as-you-go solar is actually not very easy technology, otherwise it would have been done. you need a multi-faced approach to actually make this work. And most important, you need a lot of logistics background. I'm actually a logistician by profession, to understand how the supply chain levels would work. You need a lot of IT information and very good, excellent programming to make this work. It's a lot easier to develop a desktop application than what is being used right now. So part of the hours that I would win, I would actually need to sort of help upgrade my skills and my team's skills in the logistics aspect of managing a USSD platform. Remember, a USSD application have been there. They're as old as the mobile phone. They've been there over time. You know that they applied in, let's say, mobile money today, applied in, research and querying data. To apply that to run a supply chain platform, it would be not very easy. So that's one. Number two is excellent programming. So I don't want to change my profession from logistics to IT, but I think that I would need to get a bit of information on developing good applications or judging a good application. And number three, our platform interacts with the circuit system. So what actually sits into the solar machine is actually a circuit system. That's what switches the device off and on, and it's tamper-proof. And more or less the same way you load airtime onto your phone. And that device within the solar equipment is what verifies whether you're putting in the wrong key code or not, or the right key code to bring in the integrity. And therefore, that's the data that we see, because a platform is supposed to give you real-time information from wherever part of the world that you sit in. You can see how many people were brought in on board, how many people reloaded their tokens and everything. So I would need to use part of my hours to basically learn how to develop the best circuit systems that would work in these equipments. So quite a lot of things I need to do.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you, jury. Richard, thank you for your presentation, your pitch. Wishing you the best of luck.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite you to go back to your seat and just wait in agony until the time is right.
Okay.
Thank you. Richard Awar. The second pitch comes to us from Argentina. The title is Inky Mae. Please welcome Dr. Ernesto Julio Calvo.
Thank you. Well, let me first start by thanking DSM and partners for this opportunity to disclose our solution and for the great challenge you have put forward. This challenge is about sustainability, and the only way to achieve fully 100% renewable energy is by having energy storage, because you can't stop the electrons, you can't stop the electricity, you have to store in some chemical way. And we have good examples. Lithium, for instance, everybody here probably has an iPhone or a smartphone with a lithium battery. In the last 25 years, we have seen how our life has changed, our way of communicating with smartphones. And this was because of the invention of the lithium-ion battery and the commercialization in 1991 by Sony. Electric vehicles now comes to the, may I have the next slide, please. Here is an electric vehicle sitting on a salar, which is not real. It's 4,000 meters above sea level. Electric vehicles will certainly change our lives in the next 25 years by using lithium batteries. And this is a big challenge. Lithium batteries also will make sure that we have remote electrification. Only in South America, we have a market of 7.5 gigawatt hour of the grid consumers. So 30 million people in South America don't have access to the grid. On top of that, you have smart grids these days, and all this can be achieved by lithium batteries. Now, this is important, and this would enable sustainability, but the lithium extraction has also to be sustainable. Maybe there is no a green Tesla car, but for sure, all electric cars are green. Tesla has sold in the first quarter of this year, from January to March, 20,000 cars. This is about 100 tons of lithium, which is a lot. Each car has a battery with more or less 4.5 kilos of lithium. And this amount of lithium would power more than 17,000 phones, to give you a perspective of the size of this exercise. The flagship for the phones is probably the iPhone. The flagship in the future will certainly be something like the Tesla car. Now, where is lithium? Most of the lithium reserves in the world are in the lithium triangle in South America, where you can extract it from brine. So you have a white salt flat at 4,000 meters above sea level. And underneath, you have liquid brine with 1% more, 1 gram per liter of lithium chloride. The process these days is to pour this, just to pump it out and pour into very flat ponds. And these ponds are the size, enormous ponds. In Atacama, for instance, is the size of 3,000 football stadium. Sun is free, and it's just evaporation, but it's very slow. It takes more than a year, the evaporation process, and also it consumes chemicals and produces waste. So we have water loss, consumption of chemicals, and production of waste. So here is where we introduce our solution. We thought, would it not be possible to use a battery technology? And this is what we have proven in at least the proof of concept. So we use a battery technology, which is basically, you can think of 2 electrodes where you put the brine, and it's like 2 sponges. One takes lithium, and the other takes chloride. And then you remove the brine and put a clear solution, and by using solar energy, you can recover now the lithium chloride of high purity. You don't have to further purify for battery grade, as it is done these days, because the process is highly selective with no magnesium or sodium, and uses solar energy in a place in the world where you have premium solar energy, more than 2,600 kilowatt hour per square meter, like in Sahara or Arizona. So we have the lithium and we have the sun, and we can make this renewable. So not only the lithium would enable renewable energy storage, but also the process of extracting the lithium would be completely renewable. The process is clean, as I explained. It is fast. Instead of, it's hours rather than months. And this is good for business as well. It is very highly selective. Energetically, it consumes very little energy because it's a battery. So half of the process we get battery, and the other half we use sun power. The process is modular. So as we are scaling up into larger and larger scale, we can create value. Even at small scale, we can ultra-purify the actual process, the actual produced lithium salts to battery grade. We can also extract lithium-6, which is the isotope, which is very important in nuclear energy. And also, we can recycle batteries, which I will come later on that because it's an important society thing. So the social responsibility comes in these communities, the communities that for thousands of years have lived in the salt lakes, now get nothing. The lithium is gone, and all the rubbish, all the waste, it's there. Okay. So with our process, it will be much cleaner, and the communities will benefit from it because it will be cleaner. So with that, I think I can conclude by saying that we address this challenge by bringing about a disruptive technology. A disruptive technology that doesn't exist, and we have to create, and we have to scale and develop the engineering. But also, what we are presenting here is a novel business plan where we can provide extraction services to companies interested in recovering the lithium from the salt brine. And this is important, and this is important also if we think into the future for the society as a whole, and I think this is the legacy we want to leave for future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Calvo. Please have a seat. I remind the people at home watching all over the world to keep your questions coming, because after this round, it's your turn to ask the finalists questions. But for now, it's the jury members. Rob.
Yeah, thank you. And the next question is from Sander.
Sander van der Heijden. Yeah.
Professor Calvo, thank you very much for your very inspiring presentation about a very powerful way of winning lithium. Clearly, one of the challenges is scale up for you. And we as a jury, we represent a consortium. How can this consortium best help you from where you are now to where you want to go?
Sorry, how?
How can this consortium, which represents a number of companies and institutions, best help you from your scaling up challenge?
Okay. You have already contributed with the exposure we had to the community as a whole. After being engaged with this challenge, we have been approached by companies interested in lithium. And we had access to some knowledge, public knowledge that we didn't access before. The hours of support that you offer will be really deemed very, very deeply in two areas. One is the commercial area. The information about lithium, as you may guess, is not scientific information. It's completely commercially biased. So it depends whom you ask. If someone wants to put up the shares in New York market, we'll tell you there is no lithium, it's going to be, exhausted very, very quickly, or the opposite. So I think we can get help by a professional assessment of lithium markets, how they will evolve, what are the volume, who are the players, who will be the players. For instance, now with this opportunity with this company selling thousands of cars, this was unthinkable a few years ago. And this is one part. And the other part is engineering, because the world production of lithium carbonate, it is expressed in lithium carbonate equivalents, it's about 190,000 tons a year. And it should increase dramatically because of this new need for lithium. And the actual processes are not sound enough chemically to guarantee that. So we compete with processes that they work now, but not that soundly. Therefore, the engineering is very important. We have to get very massively lithium in a cleaner way. And there is a paradox. I call it the lithium paradox. And lithium is very good to make a battery because it's very light. And you get 1 Faraday, which is 26 ampere hour per 7 grams of lithium. But when you want to recover the lithium, you need to apply 26 amps during 1 hour, or 26 hours 1 amp to recover only 7 grams. But you would probably want 7 tons or 7,000 tons. And therefore, there is an engineering challenge there that has to be solved, and we cannot solve alone. Our target is to go to the salt flat with a truck, with a pilot plant, to extract, let's say, 100 kilos a day, and demonstrate it works industrially.
Okay, clear, thank you.
I think Danny has a follow-on question.
Danny Kennedy, go ahead.
It is a follow-on to that in a similar line, but thank you very much for a really exciting presentation and vision, I think, for the big challenge we have with storage going forward. And the question's really about you and your team, because there's a lot of great ideas like this that get developed in university environments, and, all due respect to the academic world, commercializing those proof of concept ideas is often, a difficult journey. And so the question is really, what do you plan to do to build the team, and how do you plan to become more commercially successful? And sort of related, I noticed that some of the ownership of the business currently is held in the hands of an oil business, which is directly challenged by the massive growth of electric vehicles. And I wonder whether that's something that you want to clear up or have a plan for in relation to growing the business.
Okay, yeah. We come from academia. We dedicated our lives to this. And the last 5 years, we went into this problem because we thought this is very strategic, it's very important. The first output of our activity is to train people, to local people to be trained in Jujuy University, in Salta University, in Bolivia, north of Chile, to train people, to have people trained in these new technologies. And the second thing is we envisage, we talk to local small to medium companies who know the market, and they have made a proposition of these extraction services. A mining company very, very rarely is going to involve in some very complex things such as electrochemistry. But if you provide, like in the oil industry, if you provide services and if you have the technology, you can sell them the extraction of lithium. At the same time, as I said, we are talking to the big players. They approach us. Exactly 1 week ago, I was in Catamarca, in Argentina, and there was an international lithium mining conference with all the players. And some of them want to talk to me next week, for instance. So by combining small companies that can start developing and scaling this up and getting venture capital, we need venture capital and we need mentoring to be able to scale it up to the actual production today is something like 20,000 tons per year in Argentina and maybe 40,000 in Chile. And in Australia, they produce 70,000 tons, but from rock. This is lixiviating using acid and classical mining. So this is the idea, to develop this and scale it up, and by scaling it up, creating value and raising capital from companies.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Ernesto Julio Calvo, ladies and gentlemen. Fingers crossed for you as well. So our last pitch of the day from Brazil. The title of the pitch is of the project is Solar Ear. Please welcome Howard Weinstein.
Thank you. Thank you, DSM, and thank you, employees of DSM, who have organized this tremendous congress, both in Boston and in here. 20 years ago this week, in the middle of the night, my daughter died of a brain aneurysm. I went back to work the next week, where I was president of an international plumbing business, and the company I worked for fired me. They figured I couldn't make profit for them. And they're right. Trust me, you lose a child. You lose a child, you're lost. So I did a year of psychotherapy, and then found the therapist needed more help than I did. He was absolutely crazy. I started another business, didn't enjoy it. So I figured I have these skills as a business person. Why not go to Africa, help women earn a salary? Because women will take care of the health and education of their child. Men are basically useless. Okay? You may want to write that down, Judge. So I went as a Canadian volunteer to rural Botswana, a little town. And I remember my first day I'm in this office, and the office is about this, maybe twice the size of the stage here. My first day, and there's a knock at the door, and there's a lady with a teenage girl, and the lady said, my student here, Sarah, who had the same name as my daughter, needs a hearing aid. So, okay. Sarah's going to get a hearing aid. So the following week, I went to see Sarah at the School for the Deaf and said, tell me about your life. Sat down with a bunch of students, and they were all 17, 18 years old by then in grade 9. That was the top level of education for them. Tell me about your life. So they talked about being poor in rural Africa. And the face of poverty is pretty similar around the world, whether it's northeast of Brazil, Botswana, Bangladesh. Having a disability in a lot of African cultures is a stigma involved. It's sort of like a curse from God. Then I said, okay, tell me about your hopes and dreams. What would you like in life? So obviously they said, you know, there's so few jobs for women living in rural areas of Africa, and especially if you have a disability, we'd love to get a job. They also talked about hearing aids. You know, sometimes they were given hearing aids, but they said even if we're given hearing aids from a Rotary Club or from a company, we can't afford or even find a hearing aid battery. A hearing aid battery costs about $1 and lasts about a week. So let's develop a low-cost hearing aid or a rechargeable battery. Let's use the sun, because in Botswana, you have about 360 days of sunshine. Let's use the sun to make a rechargeable hearing aid. Okay. So I basically wrote a business plan of their hopes and dreams. That's all I did. I just presented to a foundation, came out with a foundation with a check for $250,000. On the flight back to Botswana, I'm going, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. So I went to see Sarah at the School for the Deaf. Okay, now go invent it. Go invent your dream, you know. I sent the business plan to some engineers in South Africa. So we had some engineers come in from South Africa who read the business plan of the hopes and dreams of Sarah and the kids for the School for the Deaf. I remember the first week, the engineer came in with a solar panel, you know, size almost the stage. And Sarah's saying, you know, that's too big for my house. So it was a deaf-led project. And so they invented the first solar charger. And then the way it works is the sun is charging 2 AA batteries, and these batteries charge the hearing aid battery or the hearing aid. And the batteries cost $1 and last 2 to 3 years versus 1 week. So we're able to actually sell a hearing aid battery and charger for less than people pay for batteries only. And Sarah's also saying to the kids, hey, my parents are poor. They'll probably steal these batteries and sell them. Let's make sure we can charge directly. Now, only somebody who's deaf is going to know that. So it's a really bottom-up approach. And on the right here is Sarah. Right? That's a picture of Sarah on the right. Change slide? Okay. So let's talk about the scale of the problem. You know, there's over 600 million people with a hearing loss in the world. You put them all together, it's the third biggest country in the world. A hearing loss stops a child from learning to speak and going to a public school, because there's so few schools for the deaf. And as we all know, it's only through education can you break the cycle of poverty. Often in developing countries, adults lose their hearing through noise pollution, lose their job. Raise your hand if you have someone in the family, an aunt, an uncle, a parent, or grandparent, who's losing their hearing. Just raise your hand. Wow. Yeah, look around. And these, as you know, the parents get excluded from family conversations. Yet there's only 10 million hearing aids sold in the world. You know, we can make a hearing aid battery and charger, sell it for $100, have the hearing aid last for 5 years, and the battery is 2 to 3 years. So we can sell it actually at an FDA, CE-approved digital hearing aid less than people pay for batteries only. The price of a hearing aid is $1,500. We buy the components from the exact same source as everyone else. We mark it up 100%. Our competitors mark it up 2,000 to 5,000%. And we give a lot of opportunity for people with a disability. You know, our real goal is children. You know, there's over 180 million children with a hearing loss. Let's get them a low-cost product so they can learn to speak, and let's get them to go to school. So again, just think about this. We had this product invented by basically 10 deaf women in rural Africa with no water in their house, no electricity, a grade 9 education, and they invented a product that's been exhibited in the Smithsonian Museum. It's on permanent exhibit at the Alexander Graham Bell Museum next to the first hearing aid he ever invented. National Geographic wrote an article, Brilliant Echo Inventions, designs that have solved the world's problems. One of the 6 products they chose was this item invented by 10 young deaf women with no water in their house, no electricity. How inspiring is that? It's amazing what they have done. You know, I'm really here, I'm not the bright mind, they're the bright mind, I'm just the voice of our workers who are deaf. So we went to Brazil, we replicated in Brazil, and the workers in deaf in Brazil said, hey, we don't have the same sun you did in Africa. So they modified it, so it works on household light. Then we scaled to China, and the Chinese says, hey, why don't we use a cell phone to connect it? So now, you know, a social business is not about the activity to make more hearing aids. It's all about the environmental, the health, the social, the economic outcomes and impacts. You know, the program we're going to do in the Middle East soon, we're going to hire deaf Muslim, Christian, and Jewish people working together with a peace-building mission. And then we're going to challenge them to modify the solar charger for the next generation. I'm also talking to people, Aboriginal people in northern Canada and Aboriginal people in the Amazon. We'll do some cross-border leadership. And that's what a social business is all about. It's not about replicating and scaling the activity making hearing aids. It's how do you replicate and scale your outcomes and your impacts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Howard Weinstein. Have a seat. I once again would like to urge the people watching online to send in their questions. But now first, the jury.
The jury and Andrea will pose this question.
Andrea Warner.
Thanks so much, Howard. A fantastic presentation. I'd like to ask, what are the barriers that have prevented you from reaching more and more people so far, and how could the support of this partnership help you to overcome those?
Oh, that's a great question. So our business model is we try and find, you know, there's 600 million people with hearing loss. So no one company has the money or the infrastructure to help everybody. So our plan really is to find local partners in, say, 15 duty-free trade zones who can service 60 countries, have them invest the money, have them hire people who are deaf, have them run a sustainable social business, and if they do that, I will transfer over $1.5 million of technology for free. And it becomes locally owned, 100% owned and operated by them. So it's the next program, really, the problem is finding these good partners. It's very tough, very tough. You know, a lot of times NGOs says, you know, give me all the money and I'll do it. I made the mistake twice, actually. Raising 100% of the money for organizations, and the project failed. So now I require the local organization to put up at least 15 to 20% of their own cash or in-kind contribution. How can DSM help? Well, I'm not a scientist, neither are our workers who are deaf. I'm sure they can help me with the science of making maybe a new solar charger. I'm thinking of, someone says, hey, why not make an action figure, like imagine a Power Man or a Wonder Woman hearing aid, looks like using kinetic energy. So as the kid runs, it's generating its own energy. I haven't got a clue how to do that. You know, brighter minds here in front of me could help me do that. And also take away the stigma of wearing a hearing aid for a kid. Imagine if they have a little action figure and, you know, they're not made fun of anymore.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
More questions from the jury?
Thank you for your inspiring and very personal presentation. In line with the other question, you're already increasing the impact you're making by going for other geographies, and I think that's your main ask. Help me set up this distribution network of my partners. This is now for an area of hearing aids. Have you thought of using this technology also for other use cases, so non-hearing aids?
Yeah, that's another great question. And yes, distribution is critical. You know, one of the problems we have, you know, one of the shortcomings we saw at the beginning was the hearing aid battery. That stopped the whole process. The battery costing $1, people couldn't afford it or even find it. We found the next blockage is testing people's hearing. Okay, how do we test people's hearing? Like in a developed country, Europe, North America, you have one professional, one audiologist for every 20,000 people. In a developing country, you have one for every 2 to 6 million people. How do you test the hearing? So we're thinking now, how can we involve micro-entrepreneurs in this whole process? Microfinance institutions. Maybe they could be a new channel of distribution for testing and distribution of these products. So I think that's the next roadblock we'll work on, is really the distribution in these villages around the world.
Yeah, my question was also, thank you for that, but my question was also very much about, instead of a hearing aid, because it's a very specific area you're focusing on,
yep.
I imagine there's a lot of renewable batteries, rechargeable batteries that can be used for other use cases as well.
Oh, sure. I mean, you know, these batteries, for example, can be used in watches. There's AA batteries here. There's probably 3 trillion AA batteries thrown in every year. Just hearing aid batteries, there's 200 million hearing aid batteries thrown in every year. You put them one on top of another to the size of the Eiffel Tower. So just imagine AA batteries. So this can be used for AA batteries for anything around the world.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question, if there is one from the jury. If not, you're totally exhausted, I can imagine. That's so much information that you need to process. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would like you to stay on stage and actually invite the other 2 finalists on stage. Can somebody please help me with chairs? Because it is now time to involve the rest of the room with questions and, of course, the people online.
Sit that side.
Exactly, you really remembered. So, Mr. Weinstein will sit on this side. Richard in the middle, please.
Yeah.
And Dr. Calvo on
Is it
the other
correct?
side.
Yes.
So, let's have a look here. This is the moment, ladies and gentlemen, where the jury members are set free almost to deliberate. I'd like you to thank you so far, and I wish you all the best in your deliberations. And please come back soon with an answer. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury members are going out for their deliberations. In the meantime, I'd like to, to really urge you to send out your tweets using that Bright Minds Challenge hashtag. Is it trending yet? Can anybody tell me? It is trending. Now you're telling me. So keep doing that. Lots of pictures. Add me because I'm not taking pictures today. Of course, add the finalists. All of that on Twitter. And, I suppose, gentlemen, you must be exhausted too. But you're not there just yet because now we have the room to deal with. So let's see. Yes, I think you should just throw the catch box to anybody in the room. And if you can, go ahead, Jolene. Yes, just throw, don't tell them where. The person who gets it, please stand up. And I wonder if you have a question for the finalists. Please stand up and talk into the X on the top. All right. Thank you.
Yes. Let me think.
Hold it near it, please. Yeah,
like this? Yes. Let me think about a good question.
So this is the lithium story?
Yes, I know. I know the solutions, of course. I have a question about the hearing aids for you, the hearing aids product. You said it was already on also on the Chinese markets. They were with it. But the question I had was, it's for the cell phones. You think it will the product, it charges itself with the cell phones? Will it go the way of the sun? Only that it can charge with the sun, or will it go the other way, more the technical way?
Okay, it's a great question. So right now, the way it charges is with the sun, household light, or cell phone. Okay, and we really leave it up to the user to see what's best for them in their local market. Okay. Just to give you an idea, flip side, where we're going solar in the future is using a cell phone. We want to have a cell phone be able to do a hearing test and then turn the cell phone into a hearing aid itself. That's the next generation. Yeah. Making this new app maybe cost $10, equal in sound quality to a $3,000 hearing aid, making it now affordable and accessible for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Paul Belen, I wonder, any questions online?
Yes, indeed. There are very good questions coming in. And people are actually voting for the question that should be asked. So let me go to that question. That's a general question to any of the finalists. What are the biggest challenges you are facing for scaling up?
Shall we just say, we'll ask them all three. Starting with you, what is the biggest challenge for you for scaling up?
The biggest challenge is the engineering to reach today's scale and, most importantly, tomorrow's scale if massive demand on lithium comes from not only portable electronics but also vehicles.
Also?
Vehicles,
yes.
Cars.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
That would be
your biggest challenge. Yeah. Richard?
Our biggest challenge would be the right partnerships in terms of course, being able to get the story out there, get the right people to work with, get the right technology, because we're in innovation. And innovation, right by the name, is something changing every other time. Mm-hmm. So you need to be on top of your game to keep innovating the same innovation that you have, so to speak, and keep being on top of the market. So I think the right partnership, and thanks for this platform, of course, we've gotten, that we can get our story out there and on top of every other support, get the right partnerships to drive the innovation forward.
I understand. Yes, Howard.
Two things. One is certainly finding the right partners in the countries we want. The second is finding them the right social investment. You know, there's a lot of people say they're social investors, but they're really looking for a return on their money. We want to find a social investor who A, be patient to get back the return, B, consider the social, economic, environmental, health impacts as important as the return on investment. I remember talking to a social investor a while ago. I love this program. Wow, let's do it here in the US. But let's use robots, let's fire all the deaf workers. I go, no, no. So it's a matter of finding also the right social investment partner.
So the gentleman in the middle with the catch box, you can now throw it randomly to somebody else. Oh, you already caught it.
Yeah.
Was that random?
No, you can make
well,
it.
Well, you've got it. So please stand up and ask your question.
Okay. First of all, congratulations, all three of you, for making it so far. I had a question from Richard, specifically, because I've worked in the telecommunications industry before as well. When you talk about the USSD codes and everything, a lot of it is being used in the mobile payments, especially in the African region, in the subcontinental region as well. But there's a problem that I was working in telecom, I associated with a lot of social impact projects, was the accountability that comes with it. What is your incentive to companies that are already operating in those regions to use your product as part of their USSD code? Because there are a lot of regulatory roadblocks that are also there. So is there a strategy that you have in mind that you can get out of this platform to cater to those problems and those roadblocks?
If I got your question right, about the regulatory challenges that come with this application. Yeah. Like I said earlier, USSD is, as an application, is as old as the mobile phone. And it's been used in a lot of other platforms, including mobile money. The reason I mentioned earlier about logistical knowledge in managing a USSD platform is it's slightly different from the normal desktop applications. There's a telecommunication angle that you cannot run a USSD platform until you partner with a telecom company, a mobile network operator, and we have that. But again, because we're in innovation, we've actually gone ahead, and in our new process, we'll not work with a telecom company directly, because of regulatory challenges that are there. We're actually working with what we call an aggregator and borrowing a platform, because aggregators have platforms that are already used for promotions, for instance, to create VAS and all those other products that we use in telecom, which are not core telecom company products, like voice and data and SMS. So we're working with these people. They already have VPN integration into the telecom companies. On the flip side, we have excellent IT platform developers, so we already have this connection. So that network together is what actually makes it happen. But like I said earlier, the reason this has not been done is because it's not very easy. You need a lot of logistical expertise to actually, back to your question, put all this together. So we have that. And hoping that when we launch it, a lot of other companies that would want to do the same will take them another 30 years to do it, because it's not easy.
Perfect. Thank you. Paul, online. Sure. What's going on?
Online, a lot of questions coming in, and I've got another question for each of you. And that is the question, which scientist or entrepreneur has inspired you the most and why?
Let's start with Howard.
I'd say that my workers who are deaf. I mean, starting with these women with no water, electricity in the house, and inventing products. Winning all a variety of tech awards, humanitarian awards, social business awards. I mean, they've just inspired me. I grew up very fortunate in Montreal, Canada, as I'm sure most of us did here. I don't think most of us accomplished 1/10 of 1% what they have accomplished. It's just absolutely amazing.
That's so nice of you to say that, actually, and you mean it. Yes, so it's great. Yes, thank you. Richard, how about you?
I'm inspired by a guy from my original home country, Kenya. It's called John Waibochi. Most of you today are aware of a mobile money transfer called M-Pesa. So before M-Pesa came to be in the year 2007, it's 10 years now. M-Pesa just celebrated 10 years of existence. A couple of years before, there were already platforms, there were already people innovating platforms that actually culminated into the M-Pesa that we know today. I was there, just finished college at the time, and I interacted with John Waibochi, and I thought that one day I should be able to create a platform that would be bigger than M-Pesa. So hoping 10 years from today, we'll be celebrating Kadogo. Kadogo is a Swahili word that means small or little. And basically, we're trying to use this platform to sort out an economy that the 270 million households that I already call a Kadogo economy. They have appetite to consume services, but it has to be sort of broken down into smaller pieces for them to consume. But they have appetite for services like all of us. So Kadogo, inspired by John 10 years ago, is actually going to be the next big thing. So borrowing from that.
Yeah. And Ernesto?
If I think quickly, I would say Louis Pasteur, Marie Curie. But let me tell you a story. In my country, from 1880, there is public education in all levels for the sons and daughters of the immigrants. I'm a result of that. And we got 3 Nobel laureates in science. And this is very strong, because this is what you receive when you get into universities in Argentina, that this is history behind you, that you can make it. And also, I should think of my mentor, David Schifrin, and all the scientists I work with. I was, lucky to visit some countries, do some postdocs, and learned the science that is required to get to this stage.
Great, thank you. So, who in the room has the catch box at this moment? Stand up and ask your question.
Yeah, my question is for Solar, for Howard. Yes. Yeah, Howard, you talked a little bit about the challenges in finding the right partnerships, and I think you mentioned specifically 2 failed partnerships, and now you talked about requiring people to have a little bit of their own skin in the game. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How do you actually find now the right partnerships? So aside from getting people to invest, it's something maybe, more specific to your company, but I think also larger companies see the same challenge.
So I'm asked probably once a week from organizations around the world, hey, set up solar in my country. And then I tell them it costs about $400,000, and 90% of the emails stop. Then I say to the remaining 10%, okay, here's the business plan, a general business plan. Here's the cash flow, within 10% of what's going to cost you. Do you have $80,000 to do this? And if you do, I will do A, B, C, help you manage the project, train your workers. And our training program, by the way, is very historic. I'll explain quickly because it's very exciting. Most technical training in the world is north-south. Some from Amsterdam going to Jakarta and teaching the people in Indonesia how to do the product. Rarely is it south-north. You don't have somebody from Bolivia going to Japan teaching Japanese anything. We ran the first south-to-south, Botswana to Brazil, deaf-to-deaf technical training program. And this program cost about $100,000 last 6 months. And so just imagine, like, for example, the Sarah's leaving a rural village in Africa, taking a 747 to Brazil, so more people in that plane than in her village, her first plane ride, arriving in a zoo of Sao Paulo of 17 million people with confidence, and then she helps choose the employees for the next project. And her and the other deaf workers, they train the employees over 6 months. And they're also speaking different sign languages. One speaking Botswana sign language, the other speaking Brazilian Portuguese sign language. So you have to invent language as they're going. It's just an amazing process. So finding organizations who are also prepared to have someone from the south come teach them. Because they all feel they know better than everywhere else. And that's one of the roadblocks too.
Okay,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Paul?
Yes, there's one question coming in from Jeff, specifically for Richard. Richard, how do you think your ID is separating itself from the competitive environment in your country?
How the what, sorry?
How do you think your ID is separating itself from the competitive environment in your country?
Right.
Good question. The pay-as-you-go solution that we're developing today, I know one company from my home country, original home country, Kenya, which supplies pay-as-you-go solutions to the entire East Africa today. It's a company from San Francisco in the US called Angaza. And Angaza are the owners of pay-as-you-go solutions that runs in a couple of other solar companies. Now, the solution runs on a desktop app which uses internet and require smartphone. And the solution is called Activator. We are creating a pay-as-you-go solution that will run on a USSD platform. And therefore, you shed off the requirement of smartphone and you shed off the requirement of internet availability. And we think those are some of the biggest barriers to scalability of this solution in the rural markets.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question from the room, I suppose. Yes, thank you. Speak firmly into the microphone.
Well, the question, I think, it's more is to Ernesto, but I think all the three candidates, I think, for me, show that it's not only climate change, but it's a great example of actually wealth distribution change that we need in the globe, actually. And I think coming from basically non-European and non-American regions, I think that's all three are great examples of that we can also change things in the globe in that way. But specifically for Ernesto, I mean, it is quite the way I understood, a very hardcore chemistry/engineering challenge that you want to solve. How difficult it would be actually to solve this problem and to advance there, in your case, in basically South America, right? I mean, in the middle of Atacama, compared to if you were, in a core industrial site in Europe or in the US. If you can kind of talk a little bit about that, that would be great.
Thank you for your question. I think it's a very, very interesting question. The chemistry is the chemistry of a battery. Florencia Martini, who is in the audience, is completing now a PhD work to understand the fundamentals of the reactions. In a battery, you have a non-aqueous solvent, but you have the same components as in the electrodes in our reactor. In our reactor, the electrodes are exposed not to non-aqueous solvent, but to brine, which is an aqueous solution, very concentrated in alkalines, in sodium, potassium, magnesium, lithium chloride, right? But I think the important point, and in Argentina, we have a good tradition in chemistry. We have chemists, particularly in the large cities, the large universities. Now, our task is to train people in the small universities, and where the resources are places which are rich in resources and poor in economics. And therefore, we want that the next generation of scholars and professors be trained at an international level. So I proposed some 5 years ago,
please round up, yes,
the creation of an international lithium center. And my dream is, I go there in 5 years' time, everybody speaks English because there is someone from Africa, someone from Australia, or from Brazil or Europe who is interested to go there because they know about lithium. Not only we have the lithium in the salt flats, but also we have people who are experts in that.
Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is it for the finalists for now. I think it's time for you to go have a rest. Thank you so much, and all the best of luck. Howard Weinstein, Richard Awar, and Ernesto Calvo. And thank you also, all of you here and online, for your questions. I think it made it a very nice and vivid and global event so far. So after all these inspiring talks, presentations, pitches, questions, it is now time for reflection and for the why behind the Bright Minds Challenge. And I would like you to help me welcome Feike Sijbesma, the CEO of DSM.
Only when the jury is back. Oh.
Feike Sijbesma, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. No, I want to keep it. Thank you. All right. Good. I feel privileged standing here. I feel humble standing here in front of you and you representing so many ideas, so many people, so much passion, what the world needs. Before we come to you, I would like to reflect a little bit, like you said. And let me go back in the Great Bright Mind Challenge. It was not called like that. In 1901, something like that, in the Dutch government. In 1901, the Dutch government was thinking, how do we provide energy to all those Dutch people? Well, much less than today, but still a number of people. And they knew there was coal found in the south of the Netherlands. So if we could change the whole infrastructure in the Netherlands towards using coal, this would be great. We could provide the whole country with energy. We would solve poverty, we would help all people. In 1902, DSM was founded. I'm not so sure there was really a Bright Mind Challenge in the government. It would be unique. No, don't go there. We're in the midst of forming a new cabinet. But there was a thought process, and DSM was founded 115 years ago. Fortunately, DSM didn't stop thinking because the great Dutch government didn't stop thinking either. And what happened in the 60s, there was again a brainwave in the government. What about, since we have gas being found in the northern part in the Netherlands, instead of the southern parts of the Netherlands, what about, again, doing a huge transition? And if you look back, we forgot it, in the 60s, this country went through a huge transition. In almost 10 years, 15 years, coal was abandoned, and 4.5 million people of the 10 million people we had in the country were dependent on coal of DSM. So almost the entire company. That was also why our coal mining people said this will never disappear, coal mining. It will never disappear. Because then half of the Netherlands need to disappear, and that will not happen. Well, the half Netherlands didn't disappear, but the coal mines did disappear, and the gas came from the north, and we had a huge transformation in the country. In 10 years, we put the whole country on gas. And that was one of the big achievements. Fortunately, we didn't stop ourselves either. And we continued to think about what kind of company we want to be. We were becoming a chemical company. And later on, again, in the 90s, we started to make the change to become a science-based company. And we further worked that out and changed our portfolio and continued in adjusting ourselves, which society should do. Continue to adjust ourselves into a science-based company. Bright science, brighter living. And that's where we stand for. And therefore, we started this Bright Mind Challenge because we know we are not the only ones with bright minds, like you found out today. Many other people have bright minds. And what about mobilizing all those bright minds? And especially on those topics which are very critical and important for society, like addressing climate change, like, with our history, a new way of providing energy to the people in solar, and therefore also connected to energy storage. So, what happened recently? What happened last week in the United States? You were there last week or not? Not in the US, but in the world? You noticed what happened? Nobody. Anybody who noticed what happened? Huh? Trump pulled out the Paris Agreement. That could be one of the statements of what happened last week. It's indeed what I wanted to hear, so thank you very much, otherwise my speech would fail. So thanks for helping me. But basically, maybe that was not the most important thing what happened last week. The most important thing what happened last week is that numerous CEOs of American-based companies said they regret, they were disappointed, and they will continue their course, like European CEOs did. And I recently, just this morning, by the way, discussed with our US president, give me the names of the companies who stood out last week and said this was a great decision. He said there are no big companies. Maybe there's a small company somewhere who thinks that or said that, but I don't know any names of big companies who said this was great to do. most companies, almost all companies, said we need to remain committed to addressing climate change. In the US, in Europe. Strong reaction of all kinds of governments in the world. Last week I was in China and I spoke with the Prime Minister, Mr. Li Keqiang of China, and he confirmed the commitment of China towards addressing climate change. So maybe that was an important message last week of the world. Maybe not so much who want to stay in or not stay in, but the message of CEOs, the message of countries, the message of NGOs, the messages of scientists. Hey guys, we're going to continue to fight this battle. And that is, I think, what last week many people said. Because, let's agree, why all those people said that? Because the science debate is over. I mean, it's clear, there is climate change and we need to address it. Since it would be unfair to burden our children, it would be unfair to burden the next generations, because we don't want to take up our responsibility, we don't want to take up our bill. And it will happen. And climate change is not something which, like you discussed in the panel this morning, change, yeah, it could happen. Maybe it will impact some people later on. That would not be nice. No. Climate change is something which impacts already people today. If you live in the south of Bangladesh, 50 million people, you know what climate change is. You know that it is much too wet. And you know you cannot grow your crops. And you know you have problems of providing your food. If you live in the Horn of Africa, 120 million people, you know it's too dry. You know what climate change is. Those people know. And we cannot say that those people were guilty of the root cause of climate change. Those people are the first people who already encountered the problem of climate change. So therefore, we need to address it, and we have not any other choice than to continue the effort. But nobody can solve it alone. Governments can set regulations, rules, maybe even targets like they did in Paris. But Mother Planet is not helped by setting targets. The planet is looking to us, oh, at least they set targets. No, that's helpful. No. Mother Planet is helped if we have innovations, solutions, progress, really changing things. So therefore, it is not only governments, it's government together with companies, together with entrepreneurs, who really can change the world. Like science can change the world. Like bright minds can put those innovations in place. And since we believe that that needs to be done, that we need to work together, that we need to work together in a way that we can mobilize all kinds of people in the world, we thought this Bright Mind Challenge and using the bright minds of many others is a good idea, together with our partners. In order, what I call many times, to future-proof our society, to future-proof our economies. And we have to do it anyway, so let's do it now. Let's prepare your own companies, let's prepare your own countries of doing that. And like you discussed, if I may say so, and put fast a price on carbon, because that would help a little bit, of anchoring our climate thinking and our climate action into our own economic system, and it would speed up the things. Like we also made of sustainability and addressing those things our key business driver, future-proofing our societies. Now, what we did with this Bright Mind Challenge is mobilizing people around the world. And it is interesting to see that 55 million people, that's not what we thought in the beginning, 55 million people have looked on the website and looked to, hey, what is this all about? I mean, 2.5 million people did something with it and said, well, you need to see it and send it to other people. Many people thought, hey, can I provide a solution to the world? Many people voted for it. 55 people out of 22 countries said, I have a great idea. Could I apply here? 10 of those we selected. 3 of those are here today. One No, 3 of those will win today. Basically, all 55, for me, win. Because we wanted to stimulate the movement. It's not about DSM. It is about science can change the world. It is about mobilizing those bright scientists and bright ideas together with the partners we have enabled. And therefore, as I said in the beginning, I feel privileged. I think we should feel humble in front of those heroes who are really changing the world with their ideas and their science. And maybe they don't have the full solution. And maybe some other people who didn't apply it will come with solutions. But this is the spirit, and this is the passion, and this is the mindset, and this is the things we need to change the world. Like some governments, as I said, did that 50 years ago, even 115 years ago, to change society and to make it a little bit better and a little bit different with their minds of that time. We have different minds, we are mobilizing them, and therefore I'm very proud that you're all here together with the winners. Thank you all very much.
And thank you, Feike Sijbesma. I'd like you to stay with me on stage now, because as you said, all 3 of them are winners. Let me just remind people, because there is a chronological order, so there will be a third, a second, and a first prize. Oh. Let me quickly remind you, the third prize is 125 hours of expert support. The second place is 250 hours, and the first place is 500 hours of expert support, meaning, of course, access to skills, networks, resources, knowledge, and upscaling your great ideas. I'm looking over there, and I can see that the jury have actually finished deliberations. Please come back on stage. Jury members, give them a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, jury members. I can see the sweat on your brows. I can see it was a very strenuous task, so thank you for doing that. So let me quickly have a short chat with the non-voting, I must say, chairman of the jury, Rob van Leen. Could you enlighten us on the criteria that the jury used?
Yeah, it does work. I have them listed here, and 4 of them we could judge before we came into this afternoon session, and that was about societal impact, commercial scalability, uniqueness, and technical quality. And we had a long deliberation and exchange of views and voting until that point. And we felt very comfortable at the end of this morning, but we also felt that all 3 were very close.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so, and then the 5th criterion is the presentation and the pitch quality.
So that's what actually gave the leverage.
It did. Maybe I should first say something about the 3 pitches.
Well, let's ask them back on stage, or would you like to say something general?
You can,
ladies and gentlemen, the finalists once more. Gentlemen, please stand on this side. Thanks. Talk about sweat on brows. Still looking good though, gentlemen. Yes, Rob, what would you like to say to the finalists?
Let me then start in the same order as we had today with Richard. We thought it was a very pragmatic approach, clearly demonstrating the economic development that is possible. I think your final example was a clear demonstration of that. We really appreciated that. So it was good. There was also a clear ask from the consortium, how can we help you? And overall, we thought it was a really great presentation.
Thank you.
Then Ernesto, you're supposed to be in the light.
You're right on the edge, that's what I was saying.
Okay,
yes,
that's my story of my life.
Safety first.
Ernesto, I think you clearly demonstrated the size of the opportunity. Also, it is a really unique innovation, and also the sustainability aspect was, of course, very important, and you have a sustainable solution for a sustainable solution. Both of your bodies can benefit from your invention when it's applied properly, and you mentioned even that the Bright Minds Challenge has helped you already, but also had clear ideas about how we can help you both on the commercial and the engineering side. So also very well done. And then, of course, Solar Ear, Howard. societal impact, very, very big. Already demonstrated, employing deaf people to help deaf children, basically make them from problem owners to problem solvers and beneficiaries. Really great, and we think you developed a platform that can be widely applicable. So, you understand that after the pitches, the jury had an even bigger problem.
Exactly, yeah, that's what. But you still did it, and you did it within the time. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, it was a really good jury.
Yes, well, you probably trained them well, Rob. Yes. So this is the moment, right?
This is the moment.
This is the moment. So I'd like a drum roll for number 3, please. And Feike will let us know who is number 3.
So I have 3 envelopes, and I start with the third winner, like we said, because please realize, I mean, you're all 3 winners, so don't take it personal if you're number 3. Take it personal towards the rest of the world. And it is not about the idea only, it is about scaling it up and the help we give. And you said the number 3 get 125 hours?
125
and
hours.
the number 2 gets?
250.
And the number 1 get?
500.
All 3 plus 1. That's my hour.
Oh, great.
Okay, good.
We'll keep holding to this.
If they want it. But I will open the envelope. How does it work, Rob? Like this.
I can hardly contain myself. Imagine if you were a finalist.
So the number 3 is Howard with Solar Air. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Wow. Great, thank you.
Congratulations, Howard. Wonderful. Thank you.
Now I would like to do an experiment with the audience, and those who knows the DSM Innovation Award know my style. If I have 2 envelopes, right? So I will first do the number 2, but since you are clever public, if I do number 2, you know who is in here, right? Because there's 3, okay, you got it. But I want you to help me that if I do number 2, you have really no clue who's in this envelope. So that I can reveal that other envelope later on and you're totally surprised. Good. Okay, I start with the number 2 then.
Keep breathing, gentlemen.
And the number 2... Yeah. No problem. Thanks for the envelope. The number 2 is Richard with Cellulite.
Congratulations.
And I know
we are
the
dying to
suspense.
know.
Yeah, you have no clue who is number 1. So let's have a look. Yeah, you did well. Number 3 envelope is unbelievable.
It's empty. It's empty.
Mr. Chairman.
Just rip it.
Just keep the suspense.
This is really very...
All right.
Big suspense.
All right. And I know you have no clue. The number 1 is Inquirme for Chile, for Buenos Aires. All 3 winners, come.
Watch it slippery, it's slippery.
Yeah, slippery, yeah. Okay. Please.
Dr. Calvo, I'm sure you would like to say a couple of words.
Richard, can Richard stand there for the picture?
Yes, they have a picture. Watch it, it's slippery. Safety first. Smile, guys, smile. Come on, this is a prize-winning award.
Good.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yes, yes, of course.
Dr. Calvo,
Yes.
go ahead.
Well, first of all, I should say that in February, when we started this, I would not imagine this moment. This is really very great. I'm really very happy. It's not only for me. Behind me, there are many people in Argentina and in the world who are doing science and trying to apply this science for a better society. And in particular, I hope this will bring about venture capital opportunities to this project and also support for developing the lithium center in Jujuy, Argentina, for the scientists of the world to develop a world-class place where not only the lithium resources are as a commodity, but also the knowledge for all kinds of applications of lithium in batteries. By the way, did you know that Airbus has in total 400 kilos of lithium in lithium copper aluminum alloy? So there are many, many possibilities here, and this is our dream for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Calvo. The winner. And many congratulations once again.
Thank you very much.
And also to your colleagues, really, your solutions, I think, make us all very optimistic and almost happy for the future. So thank you all for your strenuous work, and thank everybody here as well. Ladies and gentlemen, to me, it's been a very inspiring afternoon. I'm sure you share that sentiment. We're looking forward to a brighter future on Earth, and it's because of initiatives like this one that our children and our children's children will have a life that's almost as good as ours, maybe even better, but without the mess that we've been making. So that should be your focus, and I think that this was a wonderful, great step that we made. So let's all continue to make Earth great again, shall we? Thank you so very much. And this is probably the time that we should say goodbye to the people online. So thank you all for joining us from wherever you are on the globe. And I suggest that everybody here in the room wave at that camera. Bye, guys. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your questions. That was the online group of people. Gerdy?